Hello everyone and thanks for watching Edupedia World Videos. I am Vibhuti Parekh and today we are going to discuss regarding the political environment. The political environment, including the characteristics and policies of the political parties, the nature of the constitution and government system, and the government environment encompassing the economic and business policies and regulations are among the factors of utmost importance in the market selection and business strategy formulation. These factors may vary considerably between different nations. In fact, the political environment and the economic policy environment are intricately intertwined. Major economic policy changes often have political underpinnings. Indeed, important economic policies are often political decisions. They include the industrial policy, policy towards foreign capital and technology, fiscal policy, export and import policies. Many political decisions have serious economic and business implications. For example, prohibition is a political decision, but its effect on the alcohol industry is very huge. To make the revenue loss due to prohibition, government may increase taxes or restore to new imposts. Similarly, whether to allow foreign investment in an industry or to limit the foreign equity are often political decisions. Thus, the economic policy of the ruling party is very important. In the past, communists and the leftists favored state capitalism and were against private capital, particularly foreign. What are the economic roles of the government? The government plays an important role in almost every national economy of the world. Even in the countries described as capitalist economies or market economies, a substantial share of the nation's product goes to satisfy public wants. A substantial part of the private income originates in the public budget and public tax, and transfer payments significantly influences the state of private income distribution. Moreover, the budget policy affects the level of employment and prices in the private sector. In the predominantly private enterprise economies, government interference is necessitated by the fact, besides the socio-political ideological reasons, if any, that the market mechanism alone cannot perform all economic functions. Public policy is needed to guide, correct, and supplement it in certain respects. It is important to realize this fact since it applies that the proper size of the public sector is to a significant degree a technical rather than ideological issue. While the state controls of economy is a universal phenomenon, the extent and nature of the control may vary widely between nations depending upon the nature and stage of development of the economy, the behavior of the private sector, the political psychology, social attitude, administrative systems, etc. Governments normally play four important roles in an economy, which are regulation, promotion, entrepreneurship and planning. As stated above, the extent and nature of these roles in a given situation depend on a number of factors. Some silent of these roles are outlined below. Regulatory role. Government regulation of the business may cover a broad spectrum extending from entry into business to the final results of a business. The reservation of industries to small scale, public and cooperative sectors, licensing system, etc. Regulate the entry, regulations of product mix, promotional activities, etc. among the regulation of the conduct of business. Results of business operations may be regulated by such measures as ceiling on profit margins, dividends, etc. The state may also regulate the relationship between enterprises. Examples of this include restriction on incorporate investments, interlocking of directors, and on appointment of sole selling agents. Government regulations of the economy may be broadly divided into direct controls and indirect controls. Indirect controls are usually exercised through various fiscal and monetary incentives and disincentives or penalties. Certain activities may be encouraged or discouraged through monetary and fiscal incentives and disincentives. For example, a high import duty may discourage imports, and fiscal and monetary incentives may encourage the development of export-oriented industries. The direct administrative or physical control are more drastic in their effect. The distinguishing characteristics of direct controls is their discretionary nature. They can be applied selectively from firm to firm and industry to industry at the discretion of the state. Regulation of the business had been rampant in the developing countries. Since the late 1980s, however, a deregulation trend has set in. This has drastically transformed the competitive environment and has given an impetus to globalization. The next role that the government plays is promotional role. The promotional role played by the government is very important in developed countries as well as in the developing countries. In developing countries where the infrastructural facilities for development are inadequate and entrepreneurial activities are scarce, the promotional role of the government assumes special significance. The state will have to assume direct responsibility to build up and strengthen the necessary development infrastructures such as power, transport, finance, marketing, institutions for training and guidance, and other promotional activities. The promotional role of the state also encompasses the provision of various fiscal, monetary, and other incentives, including measures to cover certain risk for the development of certain priority sectors and activities. The next role played by the government is entrepreneurial role. In many economies, the state also plays the role of an entrepreneur, establishing and operating business enterprises and bearing the risks. A number of factors such as socio-political ideologies, dearth of private entrepreneurship, neglect of certain sectors like the unprofitable sector by the private entrepreneurs, absence of or inadequate competition in certain segments, and the resultant exploitation of consumers, etc., have contributed to the growth of state-owned enterprises in many countries. The next role which the government plays is the planning role. Especially in the developing countries, the state plays a very important role as a planner. The importance of planning to a less developed economy was often emphasized by Jawaharlal Nehru, the chief architect of development planning in India. He rightly observed that whatever it may be in other countries, in underdeveloped countries like India, which have to develop fairly rapidly, the time element is important, and the question is how to use our resources to the best advantage. If our resources are abundant, it will not matter how they are used. They'll go into a common pool of development. But where one's resources are limited, one has to see that they are directed to the right purpose so as to help to build up whatever one is aiming at. Indeed, the scope of private businesses depends to a large extent on the economic system. At one end, there are the free market economies or capitalist economies, and on the other end are the centrally planned economies or communist countries. In between these two are the mixed economies. Within the mixed economic system itself, there are wide variations. The freedom of private enterprise is the greatest in the free market economy, which is characterized by the following assumptions. First, the factor of production are privately owned and production occurs at the initiative of the private enterprise. Secondly, income is received in monetary form by the sale of services of the factors of production and from the profits of the private enterprise. Thirdly, members of the free market economy have freedom of choice in so far as consumption, occupation, saving and investment are concerned. Lastly, the free market economy is not planned, controlled or regulated by the government. The government satisfies community or collective wants but does not compete with private firms. Nor does it tell the people where to work or what to produce. The completely free market economy, however, is an abstract system rather than a real one. Today, even the so-called market economies are subject to a number of government regulations. Countries like the United States, Japan, Australia, Canada, and member countries of the EEC are regarded as market economies. The communist countries have, by and large, a centrally planned economic system. Under the rule of the communist or authoritarian socialist government, the state owns all the means of production, determines the goals of production, and controls the economy according to the central master plan. There is hardly any consumer sovereignty in a centrally planned economy, unlike in a free market economy. The consumption pattern in the centrally planned economy is dictated by the center. China, East Germany, Soviet Union, Hungary, Poland, etc. have centrally planned economies. However, recently several of these countries have discarded communist system and have moved towards the market economy. In between the capitalist system and the centrally planned system falls the system of mixed economy, under which both the public and private sector coexists as in India. The extent of state participation varies widely between the mixed economies. However, in many mixed economies, the strategic and other nationally very important industries are fully owned or dominated by the state. The economic system thus is a very important determinant of the scope of private business. The economic system and policy are therefore a very important external constraint on business. While there are not radical differences in the philosophies of major political parties in some countries, the situation is quite different in some others. The government system in a number of countries, including several countries which are making rapid economic progress and having liberal policies towards foreign capital and technology, is not very democratic. That does not mean that they are not good to make business with. As a matter of fact, in several such countries, the procedures are simpler and decisions are quicker than in some of the democratic countries. Until the political and economic changes ushered in the late 1980s and in the early 1990s in the Eastern Europe, the erstwhile USSR, these countries were a separate bloc by themselves with several common characteristics. Private enterprise were very limited and straight trading, particularly counter trade, was the rule. There were a lot of restrictions on import and foreign business. This did not, of course, mean that the communist system was bad for multinationals or other foreign firms. Under such a system, in several instances, winning over the top brass of the party or government was the strategy to obtain business. It may be noted that although companies like PepsiCo were kept out of India, they were going better with countries like USSR. In the past, public sector was assigned a very important role in many non-communists, particularly the developing countries too. In India, for example, before the policy changes of 1991, 17 of the most important industries were exclusively reserved for the public sector. Further, in the past, foreign firms in many developing countries were under the fear of nationalization. The clock, however, has turned a full circle in most of the communist and many other countries. Privatization has progressed at an amazing speed. More than 8,500 state-owned enterprises in over 80 countries were privatized in the 12 years ending in 1991, and the trend still continues. The erstwhile communist countries and the People's Republic of China were the Communist Party that are still in power and on the rapid road from Marx to the market. As against the past suspicion of the antagonism against foreign capital and technology, a large number of the developing countries, including the former communist one, are in the competition to woo market capital from foreign countries. As a result, there has been an influx of foreign investment to these countries. Although the trend of the direction of government policies across the world appears to be broadly one of convergence, there are a lot of differences in the restriction and regulation of business, scope of foreign business, trade policies, procedures, incentive systems, and so on. Coalition governments of different political parties are becoming common nowadays. Sometimes the constituents of the coalition are parties with very different economic ideologies, making the scenario complex or even confusing sometimes. Some political leaders are so powerful that they yield enormous control over the party. The vision and ideology of such leaders have stupendous implications for business. As pointed out in the section Region States under the section Economic Environment, there is a universal trend towards political decentralization. Hostilities between some countries affect business of firms even in third countries. Arab nations, for example, did not do business with firms having dealings with Israel. These countries even insisted that third country firms who wanted to do business with them must produce an Israel boycott certificate. Because of the political ties with Israel, the US government had adopted countervailing laws to prevent the US firms from complying with this boycott. Sometimes there are also economic sanctions. The number of politically independent nations has been increased as a result of splitting up of what was once a single country to several nations. The major reason for this is the rise of what Nisbet calls tribalism, which is defined as the belief in fidelity to one's own kind, defined by ethnicity, language, culture, region, or now the profession. Most nations are multi-ethnic in composition. Only about 10% of the countries of the world are ethnically homogeneous. There are 40 different ethnic groups in Kenya, each with its own language and culture. And when we talk about India, it is usually called as unity in diversity. Universally, the desire of ethnic group to become independent of the supremacy of others is growing. Nisbet observed that democracy greatly magnifies and multiplies the assertiveness of the tribes. Repression does the opposite. And the anguished drama of the tribalism is most pronounced where they are repressed the most brutally. It may be noted that the dawn of democracy in the erstwhile USSR led to its splintering into many independent states, and some of the independent states have dismissed Russian as the official language, replacing with the native language, and place names were changed from ones created during the communist regime to the new ones. The Soviet Union was made up of 104 officially recognized ethnic groups, while the birth of the new nations is peaceful in some cases, as in the case of the CIS, the division of Czechoslovakia into two. In many places around the world, horrible bloodshed has been going on for freedom or equal rights. According to Nisbet, it may be a long time before there are 1,000 countries in this world, but by the middle of this century, we should be close to that number because of these three basic reasons. Many people of the new tribalism want self-rule, and every day they see others getting self-rule or moving towards it. Secondly, the nation state is dead. Not because nation states are subsumed by superstates, but because they are breaking up to smaller or efficient parts, just like big companies. The revolution in telecommunication not only informs this tremendous move to democratic self-rule, but monitors and makes transparent the character and nature of the process. Modern telecommunication also allows and encourages extraordinary cooperation among people, companies and countries. According to him, now we also have virtual tribes or electronic tribes of professional of distinct categories. Email is a tribe maker. Electronics make more tribals in the same time in which it globalizes us. The political development in Fiji in 2000 is an indication of the importance of ethnic factors in politics. Several Indian companies have investments and business interests in Fiji. In the past, many Indian firms thought that they had a favored ethnic factor in that country. The situation, however, is not same now. That's the end of our political environment theory. Thanks for watching the video from me, Vibhuti Parekh, and from Edupedia World.